Hello students, Mr. Young here. Today we are discussing Chapter 11, Lesson 4. It is called Rome Builds an Empire. And today's lesson focuses on the Roman Empire, not the Roman Republic. So we'll start with Caesar Augustus and really follow the different emperors chronologically into sort of the golden age of the Roman Empire. Some emperors were good, some were bad, and yeah, like I said, we'll learn about Rome at the height of its power, which is right here in the year AD 117. You can see it's all the way up into Britain and down into Egypt, back to where Carthage was, and you all even extend all the way into Mesopotamia, down the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. All right, so the rule of Caesar Augustus marked the beginning of a 200-year era of peace and prosperity. This time period is known as the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace. So first things first, as Emperor Caesar Augustus wanted to defend the empire, he created a professional standing army made entirely of Roman citizens, so no mercs, no slaves, all Roman citizens. This army was 150,000 strong. He also created a 9,000-man elite unit called the Praetorian Guard, whose job was to protect the emperor. They're sort of like the Persian immortals. So Augustus also redrew the borders of the empire. He set boundaries on easily defended natural features such as rivers, deserts that were mostly incrossable, and things like that, mountain ranges, stuff like that. Defense was important, but Augustus also wanted to show off the glory of Rome. He had old buildings rebuilt to reflect the awesomeness of his new Rome. So like replace stone with marble and things like that. Basically say, we can make that building better. Let's do it. He also worked to make government efficient. He had the empire broken into provinces and appointed a proconsul to govern each. He took this time to reform tax collection as well. By paying tax collectors a standard wage, he prevented the tax collectors from taking too much from the citizens. So back in these times, and really still now, nobody likes tax collectors. So before Augustus, basically a tax collector had a certain amount of taxes he was supposed to give to the government, and he basically paid himself from what he collected. So tax collectors would come by and take a whole bunch and give what they were supposed to the government, and then take the rest for themselves. So they were almost, it was, while not encouraged for them to take more, they were encouraged to take more because no one was keeping an eye on them. So this led to corruption. So Caesar Augustus gave them a standard wage and said, you only collect what you're supposed to collect. And that way the tax collectors weren't stealing from people. Augustus also made a law, a code of law for non-Roman citizens that were under the Roman rule. Lastly, the emperor had grain imported from Africa to feed the needy. A well-fed population, after all, is less likely to revolt. Oh, my baby's beating at the door. He wants to know why I'm not playing with him. Let's see. So Augustus ruled for 40 years. He's generally considered to have done a good job. The four following emperors were a mixed bag and are referred to as the Julio-Claudian emperors. They were all related to Augustus. Let's see who they were. First, there was Augustus's adopted son, Tiberius, who's considered one of the good ones. Then Caligula, followed by Claudius, and then Nero. So Caligula and Nero were cruel rulers that killed a lot of people, including their own families. Caligula was actually ended up being killed by the Praetorian Guard, and Nero committed suicide after the Senate sentenced him to death. So you went Augustus, good. Tiberius, good. Caligula, bad. Claudius, good. And then Nero, bad. So sort of a hodgepodge of good, bad emperors. Now, after the death of Nero, things got a little violent, a little worry, a little unsettled and chaos-like. Then in AD 69, we hit AD, woot woot, a general named Vespasian became emperor. He was kind of harsh and had to crush a few revolts, including a Jewish revolt in Judea. It was at this time that the Romans destroyed the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, sort of a landmark event in history, along with the destruction of Pompeii, which we're getting to. Vespasian was the emperor to begin construction on the Colosseum, the famous amphitheater in Rome. Oh, I need to add a picture. Vespasian's son ruled after him, first Titus and then Domitian. Titus was in charge when Mount Vesuvius erupted and destroyed Pompeii. It's another sort of big event in history. So a volcano erupted. It actually destroyed more than Pompeii. Pompeii is just sort of the biggest city that was destroyed. There was also a great fire in the city of Rome. Now, despite these disasters, the two sons of Vespasian actually ruled over relatively prosperous times in the Roman Empire. Let's bump on to the 5 good emperors. They generally, it's funny that that's what they're called, the 5 good emperors. It's a time known as Roman prosperity. You had 5 good emperors in a row. You had Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is in that Russell Crowe movie, Gladiator. Marcus Aurelius, when his son takes over, Commodus, that's considered the beginning of the end for Rome. But we don't get into that in this chapter, perhaps the next. So the 5 good emperors listed above were fair and just and counted among the most capable leaders of Rome. They created programs such as educating the poor and making the laws easier to understand. They worked on public projects such as building aqueducts, which are sort of like roads for water. You can see right here. It moves water. It's basically a really fancy irrigation system. They also built roads and bridges. It was Emperor Trajan that expanded the empire to its maximum size. His successors actually had to bring it in a little bit, tighten it up, as the empire became too big to effectively defend. Even so, by the year AD 100, the Roman Empire was one of the largest empires ever, about the size of the United States in terms of square mileage. By AD 212, every free person within the empire was considered a Roman citizen with equal rights. Let's hit up economy and then we'll call it for the day. The main activity of the Romans was farming. It was the main activity of most civilizations. In Gaul, Spain, and northern Italy, they grew grapes for wine. And they also grew olives for olive oil. Egypt, Britain, and Sicily grew grains for the food supply of the empire. In the cities, industry thrived, with artisans and craftsmen making things like pottery, cloth, jewelry, items of brass, glass, and even bronze goods. A standard system of money and weights was set up and used throughout the empire, and this helped trade flourish. A system of roads helped trade as well, and moving men, armies, and the sea was secured from piracy by the Roman navy, so you could travel the Med in relative safety. All this trade was good at generating wealth for sort of the top class. And then the guys, the regular Joe Schmoes, most of the population, your regular farmers and whatnot, were still kind of poor. Your Joe Schmoes. And then don't forget there was still a whole class of slaves of conquered people. So the economy was going good, but it only really benefited the top class of people. And here's a good example of a Roman road. That's it for the lesson. Your assignment for the day is a discussion, so like a forum for Moodle. Easy question. Let's talk. What do you think was the greatest accomplishment of Caesar Augustus? There are no right or wrong answers, as long as you articulate with complete sentences and don't make stuff up. So don't say like, oh, I really like how Caesar Augustus started a space program. Didn't happen. Bonus, I'll give you an extra point if you add a relevant picture. So my example here, I would venture to say that perhaps the greatest accomplishment of Augustus was the creation of a professional standing army. You're going to need a big army to defend all that hard-won turf. Boom, little picture here of a Roman formation. So I would get a bonus point. It's 5-point assignment, 6 if you get the picture and get the bonus point. That's it. If you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.